Hey, I'm JD Hagler with Aux'Arc Climbing. This is going to be another video, another second one in a year. We're really cooking at this rate, but we're going to cover root setting versus spray walls and just kind of the basics of that root setting process. I see a lot of questions on the Homewall forum on Facebook about how do I set my own wall? What apps should I use? Should I use apps? Should I just spray it? Should I actually set? And how do I learn how to do that? And I want to try to answer some of those questions today. I am not a professional root setter. Let's get that caveat out there. There are some videos on YouTube from people who root set for a living, and those are some great videos. Vertical South has some. Keegan Minock with Dojo Climbing has also got some as well. And I think there's a lot of good pointers that both those sets of videos have. I think Vertical South has been inactive for quite a while. But, like this channel, they may raise from the dead, so who knows. But I think I've got nothing to bring to the table at this point. I've been root setting for about 5.5 years. A lot of it's been here at my home wall, and then a lot of it's been at a local gym where a lot of other people have gotten a chance to climb on it. And I think I've got enough experience in that arena to get other home wallers off the ground. So if a professional root setter like Jackie from Kilter shows up and like, that guy sucks, she might be right. So we'll leave that caveat in there. But the two things you're going to see for home walls is going to be spraying versus setting routes. Setting routes is exactly what it sounds like. You take a bunch of holds and you set an actual sequence of moves with them, and either they're all the same color or you mark them with tape to indicate those routes. Spray routes are where you take everything you own and you put it on the wall. And all these little gaps you fill in with screw-ins, or screw-ons, I suppose, and you just get it as dense as possible, and then you make up routes on the go. So let's talk spray wall versus root setting. You see my walls behind me? I am a root setting fan. Spray walls are a bolt now, set later concept. Buy now, pay later. Man, you're kind of going out on credit. You just take all your holds and you put them on the wall, and you bolt all your big ones on first, and then you take everything else and you use screw-ons to put them on. If you don't own any of these Lone Stars, get some. They're awesome little, they look like a bolt head for a normal socket cap bolt, with a hole through the middle of it for a screw. You put it in where you normally put a bolt, and you run a screw through it. So I got another video on that about working with screw-ons and how to make them and so on and so forth. A couple of specialized bits, maybe a little bit of common sense when you do it. But that's a spray wall, just super, super dense. So you're not really worried about root setting at that point. You just take everything you have and you put it on the wall. Another thing about it is that colors don't matter. Sets don't matter. You're not worried about buying sets and entire families when you're purchasing your holds. You're really just getting what you can, right? So from a used marketplace standpoint, that's awesome. You just grab whatever you can. Maybe you get everything in the same color. Maybe someone's got 50 green holes for sale. I have a ton of green holes. I mean, I was pretty close to it myself when I started this wall. Maybe somebody has 50 green holes and you buy them all, and rather than trying to set roots with all the same color of holds and using tape or something, you just put them on the wall and spray it, right? So from a used hold standpoint, spray wall, it makes a lot of sense. Another pro to it is that it's, you can be really dense really easily. We talked a little bit about that, just filling your wall up, right? So you're going to use your real estate pretty efficiently with a spray wall. I think my last pro for that is that there are a lot of apps out there for spray walls. Eat Spray Love's one of them. There's a couple others. I think one I'm using right now, I'm kind of playing around with, is Crux. Crux is one. Boulder Problem is another one. Retro Flash is a big one. Some of these you have to pay for, some of them you don't. The ones you got to pay for are nicer, but I think one of them, I'm not going to throw a name out there because I don't want to get it wrong, but one of them was pretty expensive. Like I would have had to add one wall, maybe got that for free, but then buy another wall, and they were expensive. They weren't worth maintaining. Kaya for sure is like that. Now Kaya is more of a professional program, so I wouldn't worry about a home wall on that application. That's something that I see gyms using, and that's kind of a beast of its own thing. So there are apps out there. They do allow a little bit of networking. So if you want to throw a boulder route, or you just want to throw all your holds on the wall and then allow other users to maybe set routes for you, there is that option, and maybe it'll get you off the ground. I think a few of them even have some AI or some like detection methods available where they'll just like the computer will set a route for you, and maybe 30% of them will work. There are those options, and maybe they'll work for somebody just starting. The downside to that is that nobody really knows what holds those are. You can look at them from the picture, but until you've pulled on them, or maybe you've seen them in a gym somewhere else, you don't really know what they are, right? And you can't get in there, feel them, and see what that reach looks like just from a picture. So it is a place to start, I suppose, but it's not something I've opened my wall to. I just haven't been interested in that. The cons to a spray wall to me are that you may not generate the problem that you're trying to generate, right? If you are working a specific problem outside or in another gym even, but definitely a problem outside, right? So I know this wall here, I had a problem at my local crag that was killing me. It had a sequence of left heel hooks, and I did not have the core or the legs to get up that route. And so I had a lot of routes on this wall that had a lot of left heel hooks, and I could just leave them on as long as I needed to. With a spray wall, you can set that route and fill around it, but at that point you're just setting routes, right? If you're just taking all your holes and throwing them on the wall and you're not worried about route setting at all, you may not force what you're trying to train for. And to me, you're missing out on one of the biggest aspects of having a home wall, in that you're not getting that targeted training. So I think that's the downside to spray walls. I have seen a lot of people go spray wall and they just buy whatever holds they can possibly find on the marketplace, and maybe a dozen of them are useful. And so you just see the same dozen holds out of the 100 on the wall that are getting chalked, that are getting used. And the rest of the wall is just feet, right? And that's not really accomplishing what you're wasting your space at that point. Sure, you have an efficient use of space versus real estate and hold usage, but how much of you actually using the hold, right? Just because there's a hole in the wall doesn't mean it's actually seeing any traffic. So I think that's a downside to the spray wall. Maybe a good way to start if you just really don't know what to do, but I think you're missing out on that targeted training. The pros to route setting, on the other hand, I'm a big fan of it. I think I see it pretty evenly split. I see a lot of people that like the spray walls. Again, I like the route setting. With route setting, you're actually developing a route. You're taking your colors and your families and you're putting them on there to try and solve a specific problem. You're trying to create or replicate something specific, and that's the problem you're trying to solve on your wall. The downsides to that, we can hop right into the cons of it. The downsides to it are that you might suck at route setting. That's kind of the basic problem there. With a spray wall, you're just bypassing that entirely and hoping for the best, and it's just luck of the draw. If you don't know how to set routes, that's pretty intimidating to start bolting. But also, that's the only way you learn. If you don't know how to set routes, all of us have been there at some point, right? There are clinics that people can go to for route setting, but those are typically for high-level competition, just training for those kind of scenarios. Those aren't really training for, hey, how do I do a wall in my backyard? The only way you're going to figure out is to go in there and set routes. So one thing I did is I found there's a semi-local gym in Memphis that I tied in with. I reached out. It was kind of a volunteer gym anyways, nonprofit, Memphis Rocks. They've gotten a lot of news for that. But I reached out to them and said, hey guys, I want to try and figure out how to route set. I want to do it for my home wall. I want to do it for my local gym. Can I hop in with you guys for a session or two and work with you guys and kind of get the nuts and bolts of what this process looks like? So I got to go get that training and work with them, and I learned a lot. But most of that's figured out here, right? So the pro of setting and not knowing how to set is that you're able to adjust it. If it's not doing what you want it to do, then adjust it. Another con is that you may have to reset more often. So the spray wall, you can potentially just leave it on for a really long time, and as you solve problems, you just find new ones. For a group of buddies, it's really nice to have for people around here trying different movements. If you have roots and you crush all those roots, then it's time to reset. Now, maybe you're not setting your roots hard enough, but that could be a downside, is that you're having to set more often. If you've got the time to do it, then great. I route set. I change my routes up about every 6 months. I will tweak individual routes in that time, or I may add more routes. I've done that before where I had enough real estate to come back and add a couple more routes. Maybe I didn't set everything in that first go. Maybe I reset this wall and had extra holes left over, so I came back to this wall, or vice versa. You can add more to it in between major resets. It's not that big of a deal. But again, you could be changing it out more often if you're solving these problems quickly. Another con is that it does require more sets. So setting up to route set is more expensive in my opinion, because now you're buying specific families of holes. You're not just going off the used market. You actually need to buy sets of holes, right? You want colors, you want specific families. Even if you just buy a variety of used holes, you can start taping and things like that, but most of the time if people want a route set, they want specific colors, they want everything to be in the same pack. Rock Candy I have some climbing hold home wall packs that are kind of cool, but they're a variety of colors, and that's what stopped me from buying them. I don't want random colors. That's why I really don't do any of the other packs like Escape Climbing does, because I don't know what colors I'm going to get, and that does matter. When you're route setting, you don't want just all one color. You want to buy a specific family. So you'll pass up on a lot of good used deals on Facebook because that you already own. I mean, I don't know how many yellow holds I see on Facebook. I've got a ton of yellow holds. I don't need more. I got a ton of light green holds. I don't need more, right? My yellow holds are already very difficult. That's what I want. That's what I have them for. I don't need a bunch of yellow jugs, even though they're super cheap. So I pass on a lot of that because I'm doing route setting, and I like the families that I have. The pros to route setting are, again, you can set specific problems. You're accessing, this is your home wall. This is where you come do battle. This is where you train, and this is where you solve your problems. As far as climbing problems, let's not get ridiculous. Mainly climbing problems, right? You're not going to solve a marriage in here, usually. So one of the things from like Dawn Wall that I really enjoyed was that Tommy Caldwell knew he was going to struggle on pitch 16, which was the dyno after pitch 15. And there's a scene where he has set that dyno on his back wall behind a shed, and you just see him jumping from one end of the shed to the other, practicing that move. And it would be even cooler moment if he ended up doing that in the movie, on the wall, and what he ends up doing is finding a completely different way around. But the concept is still there. If you're having problems outside, you can solve them here. You can train for them here, and I've done that so much. I've done that. There's so many things that I've done outside that I found and I set here. And in some scenarios, I even shaped a hold based on pictures that I took outside so I could climb it in here. I don't know how many times I've done that. This is where I solve my training issues outside. I work my heel hooks. I work my drop knees. I do tons of crimson here. I shape painful holds that I can climb on and develop that skin texture. I do that here. So with route setting, you're solving those specific problems. Maybe some underclings with a big move, maybe some high feet, maybe just all those things. You can do that here, route setting, and target that problem. And if it's not doing exactly what you need to do, then you tweak it and you get it to where it's doing what you need to do. Another pro to this is that, again, it can be adjusted easily and be done in stages. So with a spray wall, you kind of just throw it all on there. With route setting, I'll set 4 or 5 problems in a day, and then I've got some room left over, and I'll come back and add 2 to 3 more. Maybe I'll climb on it for a week or two and decide what levels I'm missing of difficulty, and I'll come back and add those. Or maybe I'll tweak one of them, so on and so forth. There's a lot of modularity and adjustment that can be done with route setting, and you have a lot more control of the process. There are apps for that can be used, same as the spray wall. That's kind of 6 dozen half the other. That you can use that for spray and route setting. There are apps that you can track all that with, and really the main reason I would do that is to track sends if it's important to you. I actually use my Instagram account for that most of the time, much to the behest of my my followers. But I'll track big sends on Instagram, and then I can go back and view them or view that problem, things like that. This yellow one behind me to my left, I did an earlier draft of this video, and I was like, oh yeah, this one here, I've had it on my wall for 18 months, and that's one of the benefits of keep home walls is being able to keep these projects forever and never send them. And then that day I sent it, so I'm super happy about that. I almost forced that draft to work, but there's a lot of information I wanted to add in. But again, that's one of the benefits of your home wall is being able to keep these projects, and route setting specifically, being able to keep those routes for a long period of time until you get it sent. I think that's the longest route that I've had. I don't normally keep them that long, but this one, I felt so close for so long, and it was something I wanted to get done. And with route setting, I just left that route on the wall, pulled everything else down, set around it. Just a super awesome control that I had over that issue. One of the major things I like about route setting is projecting it. I find myself on a spray wall forgetting which hold is there, or maybe it's so dense that I hit other holds. But I feel like half the battle when you're projecting on a spray wall is remembering which hold you're trying to go to. You get down, you look at your app, and you're like, was I going for that one? Oh, that's the one I was supposed to do. I was going for the wrong sloper, or whatever. I feel like with stuff in the same colors, it's so much easier to just, I'm going for the next purple hold. I'm going for the next black hold. It's so much easier to look at and identify that one foot because it's the right color. And I prefer that over trying to remember from the spray wall. I think feet are the worst part of that. Trying to find the right foot in a sea of feet on a spray wall is terrible. The other thing is that you can treat it like a spray wall later if you want to. So I think that's a good point that Keegan Minock has brought up. He'll set all his routes and then he kind of sprays it and makes up routes later on. Absolutely can do that. You can set your routes all you want and then later on start spraying it, doing circuits, laps, whatever else. Find a move that you like from one color to another and do that. Like you can absolutely get the benefits of a spray wall later after you've done your route setting. Best of both worlds in my opinion. And that's how you can get some more lifespan out of your setting as well. Maybe the first 3 months in a 6-month reset process is your routes, and then the next 3 months are you just spraying on the wall. It's just a lot more organized from the get-go. I think it's probably the thing I like the most about route setting. It's just the control that you have over it from the beginning. The things that you can target, the training that you can accomplish, the problems that you can set, those are the things that I like about having a home wall, and I think a route setting approach gives me the most control over what I want from my home wall. So, spray wall versus route setting, make your call, figure out how you want to do it. Assuming you want to do route setting, you come into a blank wall on your home wall, and how you go about that process. I want to go over that a little bit because that's where I see a lot of people really stumble. And my rule of thumb is about 10 to 15% of my routes are going to be warm-up. 25 to 35% are going to be post-warm-up. So warm-up is get your blood flowing. I've only got, I think on this wall I've got one, and on this wall I've got, oh, I'm showing pictures now. I forgot I had these cool picture graphics to show. I only have one on this wall and a couple on this wall. These just get my blood flowing. I do laps on them a couple times. I really just kind of get into the swing of this one. I definitely make sure I do my warm-up on this one a couple times before I start climbing on this one, because this one gets my shoulders moving, right? I do a full warm-up when I come in here, just getting everything, flowing and moving and stretched out, and I'm in my 30s. My shoulders, I can't just hop on this wall in my 30s anymore. So this warm-up route, I make sure I do and get going on it. And then I go into these post-warm-up routes. The post-warm-up routes are typically, obviously they're harder than a warm-up route. They're not the ones that you should be projecting. You might have one or two that take a few minutes to figure out, but really you should be, once you're warmed up, you should be getting through those pretty casually. Maybe 2-3 goes at the most. What you'll find is that your next set of routes, which I'm calling medium projects, your medium projects will start sliding into your post warm-up routes, and your post warm-up routes are going to slide into your warm-up routes. Once you've gotten that post warm-up route dialed, you start warming up on it at some point, which is great. That means you're getting stronger. It means you're getting that muscle memory figured out. That's what you want to see, right? But at an initial setting, I only want 10 to 15% warm-up routes. I want about 30% post warm-up routes, which tell me that I'm warmed up. I'm getting these. I've got this black route specifically, I would consider a post warm-up route. And when I get this one clean, it's time to start projecting. That means my muscles are warmed up to a point, my grip is dialed in, I'm chalked up to the right level. This is when I can start pulling on the hard stuff and working some things I want to get accomplished. And so that's that next phase, medium projects. Can't get these till I'm warmed up. I'm probably going to get these in the first 2 to 3 weeks. I don't want them to be super hard because I want to start doing laps on stuff. I want to start doing it regularly. I want to be able to come in and knock out the whole wall in a session. So they're going to be in that medium difficulty. Kind of your, let's say your top grade is V5 or 6. These are going to be V4 territory, right? V4, V5 minus territory. And then you got your hard project. Don't fill your wall full of hard projects. I've got about 20% long-term projects, and that's if you're a V6 climber at the max, projecting in a V7, then your long-term project's going to be V6, V7. So only have 1, 2, 3, depending on how many routes you have available to you. About 20%, 15 to 20% long-term projects. What you don't want is to route set all these routes, come out here and can't climb any of them. Okay, so make sure you're getting use out of your wall, right? Being able to do easier routes is still going to be good for your muscle development. Make sure you have those available to you. And then you also have a couple of projects that's what's developing your muscle development. How to phrase that. That's what's developing your muscle improvement. That's what's driving it. That's what's driving your technique and your muscle memory is those projects. And then when you get those done, they start moving to your medium projects. And at some point, it's time to root set again and take it all off, put it back on. So that's my breakup. About 10 to 15% warm up routes, 25 to 35% post warm up, 30 to 40% mediums, the remaining 20% ish hard, right? So now going into the wall, how do we root set? If I'm starting from a bare wall, what's the process? What route do I put on first? Well, allowed to be a little bit organic, but typically I'm going to get the biggest holds on first. So this red route, my black route, and this green route all have the biggest holds. I want these on bolts. I don't want them to be screw-ons. So I'm going to get them on first, get them into bolt holes, and then I don't have these smaller holes and I'm trying to squeeze them in around, right? I already have these wood, like system board holds on here from Stoked, and I find them to be in the way sometimes, but not so bad that I can't still root set around them. But I want to get my big holds on first and then work away from that. So also some consideration goes towards my favorite holds. So like right now, these black decoy holds are my favorite. So these are typically one of the first routes that I set. So biggest holds first, your favorite holds in that zone, and then start working out in size and favoritism, I guess. So I'll go into maybe my yellow holds, which are medium size, and I have a bunch of screw-ons there so they can fill some gaps. So I guess that's another thing is that my yellow ones I've converted a bunch of those to screw-ons. So now I'm going to move into medium holds that are bolt-ons primarily, get them on because I need to use the remaining bolt holes, and then my yellow I actually have, converted in a bunch of screw-ons and I can fill gaps with that. So my yellow, as much as I love those holds, they're some of my favorites, are actually one of my later sets on this wall because I have so many of them set to screw-ons. And just work your way out to the small holes. My last set I usually set is the purples, my pinks, which are very small and chip. My blue is pretty small stuff. I usually fill gaps with those as well, and some of them are screw-ons. And that's just that's how I do it. Start big, work your way out, and I also don't like to forerun each set individually. I like to set the wall as much as I can, and then warm up and forerun them all. So rather than doing one, forerunning it, cooling down, trying again, so on and so forth, and just going through this warm up, cool down phase multiple times, I like to warm up one time, forerun it all, and then edit it when I can just do it much quicker than I'm not cooling back down. So throw up 4 or 5, and a manageable number. Forerun them, get warmed up, get on them. If they're too easy, tweak them. If they're too hard, think about it. This one's 36 degrees, that one's 0. For a long time, I just couldn't do anything on this wall. So I've been like last 2 years, I've been able to make any progress on it. At the end of your setting, look at your count, look at your percentages. Do you have way too many warm-up routes? Do you have way too many medium routes? Do you have way too many long-term projects? Or do you not have any long-term projects? You definitely want that long-term project in there to kind of measure your progress over the course of your reset period. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year. Again, with this project here, I had it on for 18 months. I set it during paternity leave for my daughter, and she's walking. She's 19 months now. I've had this route forever. I finally sent it, and I feel like it's done wonders for my shoulder. So some of those projects are going to be worth leaving in here so you can develop that. My feet. These feet don't really move. I just kind of leave them, and if I need to edit them, I will. But a lot of times I'll just set and then force the feet to work if at all possible. If I have to move one, I will. But really, I just leave my feet on. I do know people that just use whatever feet, doesn't matter what color it is, just put a foot on the board. But you get outside and you see so many routes that are very feet dependent, and you just don't have the ability to put your foot anywhere you want to. So I do have my feet as part of the set, but at this point, I think every panel has 2 feet of every color. So unless I'm trying to force something specific, I don't edit the feet a whole lot. Pay attention to your safety. I don't want to sound like a broken record here. I'm not going to tell you to be in here with, safety goggles and earplugs while you're using your impact or whatever. That's up to you. What I will warn you about is your fall zones. So do you have a bunch of kids in here? Are you going to have toys in here? Are you going to have things like that? Be aware where your cruxes are on the route. I have a door that you can't see. It's out of frame. During the right temperatures, that door is wide open, right? So I have that corner that comes out to just beyond the reach of my hand over here. I don't put crux moves to the top of the wall for that reason. I want just good jugs at the top of this wall because I don't want to miss a move and fall into that door and break something really bad. my padding only goes out so far, so I don't want any really thick pinch moves at the top where I blow off and fall almost perpendicular to the wall angle into the concrete. I keep that in mind. I keep my difficult moves about midway up, so my fall will be captured by the mat and not by the edge of the door. And then my top panel is really just easier stuff where if I do fall, it's gonna be straight down. But typically my holds up there are some of the better ones. So keep that in mind. Where your fall zones, you'll notice in the back corner, I don't have a lot set because I don't want to cheese grate across this wall. And on this one, it's just difficult to be in this. It's super compact. I hope that answers a few questions. Feel free to post in the comments, either on Facebook or on YouTube. Reach out. You know, if you're Jackie Huffley and you call me and you're like, you suck at whatever you're doing here, then I get it, I guess. But, you know, comment. Let me know if you're doing something different, or if that just helped you out quite a bit on getting your home wall figured out and start root setting. And join us on DIY climbing holds. And there's a Homewall climbing Facebook group that's really great for this kind of conversation, where I see these questions asked the most. And really, that's the target audience for this, is trying to help these people get their home wall up and working for them. Because otherwise, it's a waste of space, right? So, summer's here. It's warming up. It's training time. And looking forward to it. I have another video here in the near future on specifically setting a route, and we'll go through it. So, thanks for watching, guys.